It is roughly 34,000 years ago. You are old enough to find a partner. There is only one problem. Almost everyone you know is related to you. Your entire world might contain only a few dozen people. Some are children, some are already paired, and most of the rest are your brothers, sisters, cousins, or people who helped raise you. This is not a dating pool. This is a family reunion with spears. But somewhere beyond the river, the forest, and several days of dangerous walking, another group exists. You have heard stories about them. Maybe your relatives traded stone or animal skins with them before. Maybe someone in your camp was born among them. And somewhere inside that group might be the person you will spend your life with. There is no road. There is no horse. There is no phone, no letter, and no friend willing to show you their profile. If you want to meet them, you walk. And if their group has already moved by the time you arrive, congratulations. You have just been ghosted by an entire prehistoric community. So how did ancient humans form relationships across huge distances? Did prehistoric long-distance relationships actually exist? And how far would you risk walking for someone you had never met? The answer is much bigger than romance, because these relationships may have helped keep the entire human species alive. Let us start with the first problem. Your group is dangerously small. Movies often show prehistoric people living in one isolated tribe that does everything alone. They hunt alone, eat alone, fight alone, and somehow survive for thousands of years without meeting anyone else. That probably was not how the human world worked. Small residential groups were useful because they could move quickly and survive on limited food. But staying completely isolated created another problem. After only a few generations, too many potential partners would be close relatives. Ancient humans knew nothing about DNA. They did not understand chromosomes or recessive genetic conditions, but they did not need to. A society can develop rules against pairing with close relatives without understanding the biology behind those rules. People only need to remember who belongs to which family and which relationships are forbidden. And we have evidence that some prehistoric humans were doing exactly that. At Sunghir in modern-day Russia, researchers studied DNA from people buried around 34,000 years ago. These individuals came from a small population, but they were not closely related in the way scientists expected from a completely isolated community. That is strange. If the local population was small, but the people living together were not all close relatives, then new people must have been entering the group, or people were regularly finding partners somewhere else. In other words, the ancient dating pool extended beyond the campfire. Researchers believe groups like these were connected through wider mating and social networks. Tiny camps were not separate islands. They were pieces of a larger system made from relatives, trading partners, visitors, and possible future spouses. There is even a word for finding a partner outside your immediate group: exogamy. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. Do not choose your cousin. Walk until the people stop looking like your cousin. Now comes the difficult part. How do you find another group without a map? You do not wander randomly through the wilderness, hoping to discover attractive strangers behind a tree. That is a very efficient way to find a leopard. Instead, knowledge travels through people. You know where another group lives because an older relative has met them. You know where groups gather because those locations are repeated in stories. Rivers, animal migration routes, coastlines, stone sources, and seasonal food could bring different communities to the same places again and again. Archaeologists find shells far from the sea, and stone tools hundreds of kilometers from the rock sources where their material originated. That does not mean one person carried each object the entire distance. Many probably moved through repeated exchanges between connected groups. But that is the important part. The groups were connected. At certain times of year, several communities may have gathered where food was temporarily abundant. They could trade, perform rituals, exchange information, visit relatives, and meet people outside their normal camp. This may have been the closest thing you had to a dating app. Except it only opened during one season, everyone brought their parents, and getting there could take a week. And your family probably mattered a lot. Modern people like to imagine ancient romance as two individuals seeing each other across a fire and instantly falling in love. Possible? Of course. Provable? Not even slightly. Love does not leave a skeleton. Attraction does not become a stone tool. No archaeologist can excavate a 40,000-year-old crush. What researchers can study are marriage customs in documented hunter-gatherer societies, patterns of residence, genetic relationships, and movement between communities. Comparative research suggests arranged unions may have very deep roots in human history. That does not mean every ancient human was forced to marry a stranger chosen by their parents. Prehistoric societies were not one culture, and modern hunter-gatherers are not frozen copies of the Stone Age. But your relationship probably involved more people than just you and your partner. Two families had to trust one another. Food might be exchanged. Responsibilities had to be agreed upon. And because a partnership connected two groups, everyone had a reason to care about whether it worked. Imagine finally reaching the meeting place. You have been walking for days. Your feet hurt. Your food is almost gone. Then, through the trees, you see smoke. People step out to watch you approach. They dress differently. Their tools look slightly different. Their speech may sound unfamiliar. And every person near that fire is trying to decide whether you are a guest, a future relative, or a threat. Modern dating is uncomfortable, but at least the other person's entire family is usually not holding sharpened stone. If the meeting goes well, you may spend days or weeks near the other group. You learn names, you share food, you watch how people behave. They watch you even more carefully. But then the season changes. The animals move, food becomes scarce, and the groups separate again. This is where something resembling a long-distance relationship could begin. You might return to your original camp while the other person travels in another direction. You may not see each other until the next gathering. No messages, no calls, no way to know whether they are sick, injured, or even still alive. If someone from their group visits yours, they might bring news. If the two communities meet regularly, you may have some idea when the next reunion will happen. But the honest answer is that maintaining a permanent romantic relationship across a large distance would have been extremely difficult. Ancient long-distance relationships probably worked by eventually ending the distance. One of you moved. After a partnership formed, one person could leave the camp where they grew up and join the other community. Anthropologists call this post-marital residence, and human societies have used many different versions of it. Sometimes the woman moved, sometimes the man moved, sometimes the couple lived near one family before later moving closer to the other. There was no universal prehistoric rule, but whoever left was giving up almost everything familiar. You are not simply moving into a different house. Houses barely exist. You are leaving the people who taught you where to find water, which plants are safe, how to track animals, and where to hide when the weather turns dangerous. The new landscape may contain unfamiliar paths. The group may use different words, follow different rules, tell different stories, and prepare food in ways you have never seen. Your partner is not just your romantic connection. They are your guide, translator, protection, and first link to everyone around you. Meeting the parents is no longer an uncomfortable dinner. It is your entire survival plan. And this is where the story becomes larger than two people. When you move between groups, you create a bridge. Your children now have relatives in two communities. Information can pass across that connection, so can tools, materials, stories, and warnings. If food disappears in one area, your old group may know where your new group moved. If conflict begins, relatives on both sides may have a reason to negotiate instead of fight. If someone discovers a better tool or a safer route through the mountains, that knowledge can travel far beyond one camp. A partner from another group also brings new genetic variation. This lowers the risk created by repeated close relative pairings and helps a small population remain healthy across generations. So finding a partner was not separate from survival, it was survival. Humans did not dominate the planet because every small group could handle everything alone. We survived partly because separate groups could connect, cooperate, exchange people, and create relationships that stretched farther than anyone could see from a single campfire. But was any of this actually love? Here is the most honest answer. We do not know. We can detect movement in ancient DNA. We can reconstruct family relationships. We can find objects that traveled between distant communities. We can compare social patterns across human societies. But we cannot recover a feeling. Some partnerships were probably arranged for practical reasons. Some may have been unhappy. Some people almost certainly fell deeply in love. Human attachment did not suddenly appear when someone invented poetry. The emotion may be ancient. The evidence is simply silent. So here is the full picture. You grow up inside a small group where most people are relatives. Your community maintains connections with other groups. During visits, trading events, or seasonal gatherings, you meet possible partners. Families may help decide what happens next. For a while, distance separates you. Then someone walks. That final journey could take you away from everything you know. But it also connects two families, reduces isolation, spreads knowledge, and gives both groups somewhere else to turn when survival becomes difficult. Today, a long-distance relationship means delayed messages, expensive flights, and arguing about whose internet stopped working. For your ancestors, it meant mountains, rivers, predators, changing seasons, and the possibility that the person you loved could disappear with their entire community. You complain when a reply takes 6 hours. They may have waited 6 months. And when waiting became impossible, they did not open an app. They crossed the distance themselves. So how far would an ancient human travel for love? Far enough to leave home. Far enough to enter the territory of strangers. And sometimes far enough that the journey changed not only 2 lives, but the future of both communities. Long before humans sent love letters, they sent something much harder to fake, themselves. Would you risk that journey? Let me know in the comments.